This video is for GCSE AQA Business Studies, and it's looking at exam technique with regards to actually creating an analytical argument. So we'll use the technique of PEAL, which I'm sure you use in many of your different subjects. It's quite a common technique, but it's an effective technique. So initially we start off with the point. Whatever point you create, you have to explain, or you have to give reasoning as to why this point is valid. So assume that the examiner knows absolutely nothing. Now, in terms of why this point is valid, you have to be obviously careful in terms of interpreting the question. What is the question about? What theory is the question about? What business situation is the question about? Is there a case study which the question actually relates to, or is the question actually more generic or about a specific industry? Again, your point should take that all into consideration. And when you start to give reasoning as to why it's valid, that's when you start to bring in evidence as well. Now, again, if there is a case study, your evidence should be tied directly from the case study. And again, you can quote, you can paraphrase, but you should make it clear to the examiner that you've understood what the case study relates to, what the question is asking you, and you're using the situation to guide your point. Now, if you read your answer and it could be about absolutely any business, then you're not offering the context, and the context will get you the higher level marks. Now you're at the bit where you're offering development, and you have to think about logical chains of arguments, and you have to create an analytical argument. Now, the biggest difference between explanation and analysis is that you are forming an argument, and you're using much more, I suppose, analytical language. So, for example, if you're looking at an advantage, the language that you use really needs to emphasise why this point is advantageous. If it's a disadvantage you're looking at, again, emphasise why this point would be so detrimental for the given situation. And some phrases that you could use to help with the development is such as this will lead to, or this could ultimately mean. Try to include connectives within your work as well to just help the flow of your development. And after every sentence, ask yourself the questions: why? Why would this be the case? Have I really reasoned and informed the examiner why this would be the case, or how this would be the case? And then link back to what the question is actually asking. Just make sure, read over your point again, and just make it clear to the examiner that you are answering what the question is asking. Emphasize it. Maybe the ultimately leading point could help with that. So we're going to use an example of Veggielands. And again, this is based on the new spec, and the owners of Veggielands want to expand the business. They're considering two ways of doing this: continuing to open up a new restaurant themselves, so that would be an example of organic growth, but also another organic growth technique would actually be franchising the Veggielands brand and name, but there's a little bit less control involved within that. So which of these two methods of expansion do you believe would be better for Veggielands Limited? Support your answer by referring to item A. So I've highlighted some key parts of this question. First of all, it's all to do with business expansion. So, and the ways they're doing it is opening up their own restaurants themselves or franchising the Veggielands. So you need to consider the advantages and disadvantages of opening up a restaurant themselves, and the advantages and disadvantages of franchising the Veggielands brand and name. And you need to explore why it'd be better for Veggielands. Not any other business, but Veggielands. And the only way you can do this is by looking at the case study and applying it to the case study to get your examples. Now, what I'd recommend is every time you look at a question and you interpret the question, then you revisit the case study and just highlight key points of the case study which directly relate to this question. What many students do is they'll read the case study to start off with, and then they'll just simply go on with the questions. I wouldn't even do that. I'd read the question first and then go to the case study. So I've highlighted some parts which I think could be crucial. So first of all, locally sourced. So if it's locally sourced, they've obviously got key suppliers that they use. Those key suppliers would also have to be used for franchising. Staff wages are higher. That could increase additional costs if they were opening up their own restaurant. The brand has become trusted, which suggests that franchisees might be interested in the brand, but also the issue of that is, would franchisees damage that trust? and the number of customers continue to increase each year, well, franchising would be rapid expansion, so that would help with that. The owners want to expand the business even more, so it is definitely a corporate objective. And in return for a share of the franchisee's monthly profits. So it also gives you a bit of an advantage there as to why to franchise. It'd be a much cheaper way of rapidly expanding, and they'd obviously get a share of the profits. But if they opened it themselves, they'd get the whole profit. So I'm going to share with you my first point. And I've put both strategies are examples of organic growth when a company internally grows. So I just started off with a quick definition of organic growth, because like I said before, they're both techniques. By opening up new stores, they'll have more control over their growth. So that's my main point, and I'm looking at obviously the first option. The brand is trusted and obviously has a good reputation, so therefore they'll want to keep this management structure in place. If they were to use franchising, the managerial system may alter, and Vegeland Limited might not have the same amount of control, and therefore they would have to place a lot of trust in the franchisee to keep the brand image high. So that's my analysis. I'm referring back to the evidence, but also my main point. And don't be afraid to look at, well, actually, one of the reasons why this point is so valid is because of the issues of the other option. So I put, in addition, Vegeland have already opened up 6 restaurants, showing a good track record with this growth strategy. So I've done my main advantage for continue to open up new restaurants, and I've developed it. I've said it obviously in terms of why, and I've asked that question why in terms of why is it important that the brand is trusted? How would opening up new stores help with this trust? And why would franchise perhaps not? Now, to carry on with this answer, and I want you to have a go at this yourself, is I would actually look at the counter-argument now. Because remember, in order to get the higher marks, you need balance. And therefore, because I've looked at the advantages of opening up a new restaurant themselves, now what I want you to do is consider the advantages of franchising the Vegeland brand. And once you've done that counter-argument, your analysis is complete. And now you can move on to your judgment and your evaluation.